G'day guys and welcome to another episode of Built Not Bought Extra. Hold on a second. So this week I'm going to show you guys how to upgrade the 5th gear in your Nissan Patrol gearbox. Now firstly, while I go and grab the box out of the house, I just want to tell you a bit about it. Now this kit is from Mark's 4-wheel-drive adapters. They do a lot of conversion parts and such. But they also do upgrades like this, and another big part of their business is like portal axles and that. So upgrades for a car that's not necessarily a conversion, but more so just making the 4-wheel-drive more capable. Now in this case, if you have a Nissan Patrol with the 5-speed manual, the 5th gear is quite short. Like you're going into 4th, meh, and then you hit 5th. Man, there's like no change. So this will not only strengthen the 5th gear, but will also bring the revs down. So when you're cruising on the freeway, you're not using as much fuel. So really simple, there's a couple of gears. Now, by the way, I've never done this before. So you and me are gonna have a bit of a learning curve together. So I don't know anything like all about gearboxes. So that's a gear and it goes in that box. Let's just start pulling it apart, shall we? Now I have been told that this whole upgrade can be done through the top of the gearbox, so we'll start there by pulling that plate off and see what's inside, but if we run into trouble I might have to phone a friend, see who's got a workshop manual. So let's get to it. Shut up! So I have no idea how many Ks this gearbox has done, but it looks kind of worn. May have just opened a can of worms here. Now what I did do was buy a manual. Because I've been thinking, you know what, I'm not going to be able to pull this thing apart without f***ing something if I don't use a manual. So I bit the bullet. It was only like 40 bucks or something from Super Cheap, so now I can use it for other things like the diffs or the door handles, because that's all that's really stock. But yeah, for other things, transfer case and that. But what I do want to do, I think now we'll pull the transfer case off, and apparently pulling the gears from the back's a lot easier, so let's do that now. Looking at this thing now, it looks like there's some bolts on the other side and inside this housing here. And I'm pretty sure this whole unit will slide off and leave this little miniature bell housing looking thing and the transmission cross member as one piece. And then on the other side of that, I think it's where we can get the gears out. Yes. One great technique, guys, for undoing tight bolts is to get a second spanner and put it on the end of the first one. It will give you that more leverage to undo the bolt, except this one's really tight. There you go. Whoa. Heavy. Okay, looking at this here, I'd almost be inclined to say that this gear and this gear is the 5th overdrive gear, just by looking at it. Wow, now I've just noticed something. This 5th gear is absolutely pitted. Okay, now I've just put that adapter plate on now and torqued up the bolts. Pretty much, I've put the main gear on, and what I'm going to do now is put this assembly back on. This is like the synchronous selector, I think, for that 5th gear. Now, there's these little clips here that we took out earlier, and I can't quite remember which way they go in. So I took a whole bunch of photos. If you're going to do something like this and you're not sure how it goes back together, just take all the photos you can, and it's definitely going to help you trying to put it back together. So there we go, I can see the clips there. Much that, yep, the high side faces back and the fin bit's inwards. So that's how I remember how it goes together. Now this bearing here is the bearing that goes on this main output shaft. What I want to do is chuck it in the oven on about 200 degrees. Just let it heat up for a few minutes, like half an hour or so. And then bring it out, put some gloves on, and while it's hot, throw it on there, and it should, because it's an interference fit. I measured it up, and this size is exactly what that shaft is, so it's not going to go on now. So once it heats up and expands a bit, we'll be able to just slide it on quickly, and once it falls back, it'll cool, and then clamp up onto that shaft there. That easy. Okay, so as you can see, that bearing went on really quite well with the heat. It just slid on, whereas before I couldn't even push it on. Even with a bit of a tap, it was feeling quite tight. So that's definitely the way you want to do that. Now I'm just going to get this top cap back on. I didn't actually need to take this off, but I thought the 5th gear was inside there, but it's definitely just put on the back. So it's definitely important to put this gasket sealer on, and when you're doing it, make sure that you get the goo to go around the bolt holes as well, just to stop any water getting into the thread, and that'll just help it, especially being a 4-drive, and it could possibly, you know, get those bolts to corrode in there a bit. So get this lid on, pretty much drop it back into the car, connect the transfer case as well. These bolts will have a torque setting in the manual. I'll check that up. I think it's about 40 or 50 Newton meters. Remember, if you do want to get yourself one of these 5th gears, the only place to get them is from Mark's 4-drive adapters over in Melbourne, I think they are. I haven't heard of any companies doing anything similar, I don't think. But Mark's also do your transfer case ratio changes, your diff gears and all that stuff. So you can get it all from there, go check it out. That pretty much wraps it up for the 5th gear upgrade. Oh hey! Click the button to subscribe to my channel and you'll finally be happy.